It's Thursday, May 30. This is the news on PBCJ. I am Simone Absalom. A team from the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation and the National Water Commission is to hold meetings with members of Parliament, councillors and stakeholders in parishes affected by the dry spell. Senator Pernell Charles Jr., Minister with responsibility for water, has said he is moving quickly to identify the best mechanisms to distribute potable water to drought-stricken communities. A sum of $125 million has been allocated to improve the distribution of water to the most affected areas. $120 million will be allocated to build a shelter on King Street for homeless persons in the corporate area. This announcement came from Local Government and Community Development Minister Desmond McKenzie during his contribution to the 2019-2020 sectoral debate in the House of Representatives on Tuesday.
This center, Mr. Speaker, will be built at approximately a cost of $120 million, Mr. Speaker. We are in partnership with the Health Fund. We are in partnership with JSIF, Mr. Speaker. When this facility is constructed, Mr. Speaker, it will become a modern drop-in facility, the first of its kind to be built in this part of the world, Mr. Speaker.
Minister McKenzie also outlined various initiatives to assist homeless and indigent across the island.
We have also started constructing modern concrete houses for indigent people, Mr. Speaker. And those persons who we are assisting are living outside of our infirmary system. We started in Clarendon with the aim of building 28 such houses for 2018-2019, 11 of those were completed. And the remaining portion, Mr. Speaker, in the parishes of St. Anne, St. Thomas and Trelawney and St. Thomas is well advanced. Mr. Speaker, we have built houses in Lime Hall, Beecher Town.
Leaky tanks have been blamed for much of the $5 billion worth of oil losses reported at the Petrojam refinery between 2013 and 2018. This confirmation came from Petrojam's General Manager Winston Watson, speaking at Tuesday's sitting of Parliament's Public Accounts Committee, PAC. Last December, a report from the Auditor General showed that Petrojam could not account for 600,000 barrels of oil, valuing over $5 billion over a 5-year period. Mr. Watson is suggesting that leakage at the refinery's tanks contributed significantly to the problem.
There are several things that created the oil loss in the first place. For instance, one of them is we have a tank that's somewhere in the region of 400,000 barrels.
You say you're at 0.14?
0.4.
0.4.
One of them was in the region of 400,000 barrels. That tank had a significant loss, leaking. So you have losses there as well. So that tank was taken out of service. That tank is now being repaired. And that alone creates a significant reduction in your losses.
Is that
so
a
Mr.
crude
Watson,
oil tank or a finished product?
It's a crude oil tank.
But if that would have been a huge, that should have been a huge pointer for you to have identified. If that one single tank could affect your numbers in such a significant way. No, but it should not have lasted long, because if you, according to you, you do daily checks. If you do daily checks, the moment you realize that you have significant differences over a 2-day period, you would have taken it out.
What is required to take a 400,000 barrel tank out of service is not something you shut down the next day.
So you can't remove it to something else?
No, you don't just take it out. That is our largest crude tank.
Meanwhile, Petrojam's business support manager, Telroy Morgan, gave a breakdown of the company's losses during the period reviewed by the Auditor General.
There is absolutely no refinery anywhere in the world that experiences zero oil loss. The very movements that Mr. Watson spoke about, the very handling, the nature of oil itself lends itself to tolerances. Important to note in the document that we have provided it delves into what the industry is about. Importantly, what is the industry variance that is accepted widely? What is that variance? That variance is typically around 0.35 up to 0.9%. Important to know that. In the scale of what occurred over the 5 years, we had roughly about 80 million barrels of oil finished products passing through the refinery. Of that, we recovered roughly, I think, about 78 million, and that is more for what you would have sold. Of the 2 million difference, roughly about 1.4 million was used as fuel within the refinery, and the difference is contextualized as losses.
Mr. Morgan also says Jamaica's oil losses aren't outside industry norms. Tedward Morgan was addressing the Parliament's Public Accounts Committee on Tuesday. Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries, J.C. Hutchinson, says approximately 220 small farmers will be cultivating plots on the 2,400-acre farm to be established at Holland Estate in St. Elizabeth. Minister Hutchinson, who was speaking at a recent interview with JIS, said that the property will be officially handed over on Monday, June 3. He said the acquisition of the property is another step in the government's commitment to get lands in the hands of farmers in order to boost agricultural production. He says the production from the farm will facilitate the reintroduction and strengthening of breakfast and lunch programs in a number of schools in St. Elizabeth. Students at more than 800 schools across the island are provided with breakfast and or lunch each week under the government's National School Feeding Program. 17% of the electricity generated by the Jamaica Public Service is stolen and costs the country US $140 million annually. That from Energy, Science and Technology Minister Favour Williams.
When you look across, when you do the comparison across other countries, ours rank very high, off the charts, if you ask me. This is something that we need to address, and I did spell out some of the ways in which we can address it to reduce it.
Minister Williams outlined possible measures to stem electricity theft.
Number one, we can look at those communities in which there are persons who are illegally connected to the system. Sometimes the reason for that is their homes are not properly wired. So we have to look and see if there is a program, if we can expand the program that we have now so that persons who can't afford it can get their homes properly wired. It's very expensive to do so, $70,000, $80,000 to get it done. There are many persons who can afford to pay the $2,000 or the $3,000 electric bill on a monthly basis, but they can't find that big lump sum to get the house wired. So we need to expand that, and I believe that will reduce the theft that's there. There are a number of other programs that the OUR has discussed with the ministry, that JPS has discussed with the ministry as well, that we will look at to see and probably pilot and to see what the impact is from these programs. But the call from me to those who are doing it, to those who are stealing electricity, is to heighten awareness that this is not a behavior that we are going to tolerate in this society.
A long-standing issue, the JPS reports that they pulled down 170,000 electricity connections last year. However, most of those connections were restored once the authorities had departed. The minister said electricity theft affects all paying customers.
Truth be told, we're paying about 8.5% more on our bills because of this. Every one of us who pay our electric bills at the end of the month, we are paying more for the persons who are stealing.
Head of the Caribbean Maritime University, Professor Fitz Pinnock, has rejected assertions that former Education Minister Ruel Reid played a part in the institution's engagement of former Jamaica Labour Party Member of Parliament Othniel Lawrence. Mr. Lawrence's 3-year, $5 million per annum contract with the university has been the topic of discussion in recent months. However, speaking at Wednesday's sitting of Parliament's Public Administration and Appropriations Committee, Professor Pinnock repeatedly rejected suggestions that the then Education Minister had anything to do with the hiring of the former JLP MP.
At no stage did you see this. Did you discuss this with Minister Reid?
Chairman.
Not so. We had no discussion on it because Minister Reid do not get into the employment or any minister get into the employment of persons at CMU.
So you're saying Minister Reid did not know that?
Chairman.
I cannot speak for Minister Reid, sir.
Chairman, can we just deal with the substantive issues?
No,
sir?
but with due respect, Member Dunn, this is the substantive issue. This
But
is
you're
what
asking,
is.
But you're asking the professor questions that he cannot answer, sir.
What do you mean? How can he
No,
not?
but he can't. He does. So just deal with the issues as it relates to CMU.
Mr. Chairman, with due respect, sir, I cannot answer and nor would I collude or take part in any political employment of this nature, sir. It does not exist at CMU. And I put this forward to you, sir.
The Jamaica Constabulary Force is changing for the better, so says Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Mr. Holness cited the reduction in fatal police shootings as a positive step in the direction of a new police force. The Prime Minister also made reference to Sunday's brazen robbery of a supermarket in Maypen, where the police showed great restraint in preventing loss of life in a situation where hostages were involved.
10 years ago, that would have been the perception of the police force. A brutal force. That would have been the perception. The perception is now changing. And it has changed to the point where, by virtue of citizen journalism, I was able to watch a video where the comment was, but them policemen are a joke. The perception of the brutal force is changing. Some people may say, well, that's not good, but I think it is a good thing.
Mr. Holness dismissed the notion that the drop in fatal police shootings is solely attributed to work of watchdog group Indicom.
So yes, there is some ambivalence about Indicom, and the public generally sometimes would want to attribute the reduction in police killings to the formation of Indicom. But I happen to know that the leadership of the JCF also played an integral and important role in deliberately looking at your operational procedures and your use of force policy, even without Indicom, to ensure that you were changing the way in which you used force.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness was addressing the 76th Annual Police Federation Joint Conference in Ocho Rios on Wednesday. Conglomerate GraceKennedy Limited yesterday officially unveiled its corporate headquarters in downtown Kingston, which came at a price tag of $3.25 billion and giving a major boost to downtown Kingston, which for years suffered from urban blight. Prime Minister Andrew Holness was on hand for the opening. The building, which for the first time hosted members of the public for GraceKennedy's annual general meeting yesterday afternoon, later hosted a number of specially invited guests, including Prime Minister Andrew Holness, to the official opening ceremony. Located at 42 to 56 Harbour Street in Kingston, the new GraceKennedy building has 10 floors and covers 192,000 square feet. The Caribbean Christian Center for the Deaf is collaborating with the Jamaica Association for the Deaf to host a forum on deaf education today at the Mona School of Business and Management on the University of the West Indies campus. The event, under the theme Reach to Teach, will bring together stakeholders from the health and education sectors and civil society for discussion. The aim is to identify gaps and develop strategies to ensure hard of hearing and deaf children and youth have access to meaningful education and training. Spelling Bee champion Darian Douglas has advanced to Thursday's final of the Scripps National Spelling Bee in Washington, D.C., United States. He is among 50 spellers to have advanced from a field of 565 competitors from around the world after preliminary tests on a stage spelling. The final was set for 10 a.m. this morning. Motorists should see a decrease at the pumps in the price of gasoline and diesel effective today. That's according to the latest ex-refinery costs from Petrojam. 87 and 90 octane gasoline will be sold for $131.99 and $134.83 per liter respectively, down by $2.87 each. Automotive diesel fuel will be sold for $135.10 per liter, following a decrease of $2.98, while ultra-low sulfur diesel is down by $3.02 and will be sold for $139.60 per liter. Meanwhile, kerosene decreased in price by $3.01 and will be sold for $116.40 per liter. Do remember, marketing companies and retailers will add their respective markup to these prices. The US dollar on Wednesday ended trading at Jamaican $133.83, down by 19 cents. That's according to the Bank of Jamaica's daily foreign exchange trading summary. The Canadian dollar ended trading at Jamaican $100.46, up from $99.43, while the British pound sterling ended trading at Jamaican $168.09, down from Jamaican $169.67. In regional news, Cuba is legalizing private Wi-Fi networks and the importation of equipment like routers, eliminating one of the world's tightest restrictions on internet use. The measure, announced by state media on Wednesday, provides a legal status to thousands of Cubans who created homemade digital networks with smuggled equipment that was illegal but generally tolerated by authorities in recent years. It also appears to allow private businesses to provide internet to customers, the potential start in Cuba of internet cafes that are virtually unknown. While the new regulation permits citizens to connect to the internet with their own equipment and share the signal with others, it does not loosen state control of the internet itself. Cuba's telecoms monopoly, ITESCA, remains the only internet provider on the island. In sports, the medical staff of the Reggae Girls team has allayed fears of any serious injury to Khadijah Shaw after the ace striker was forced out of the friendly international game against Scotland inside Hampton Park on Tuesday evening. However, Dr. Lorian Miller and physiotherapist Sandria Codling are unsure of the extent of the injuries suffered by Shaw's replacement, Kayla McCoy, who also limped out of the game with a knee injury. McCoy is slated to have an X-ray done soon. The game, which Jamaica lost 2-3, attracted a record 18,555 crowd at Hampton Park. And that's the news on PBCJ. Thank you so much for watching.